was about 4 years old, my mother and father decided to take us to Swanage, down in Dorset. My dad drove a Morris 1000 van. It had a crank handle that you'd put in the front, just under the bonnet, under the grille. And in the winter it'd have to and sometimes in the summer too. And it was just big enough out the back to put a mattress in it. So me and my brother could be woken up at the crack of dawn, thrown in the back in our pyjamas with all the holiday stuff, and my dad would start the 5-hour drive down there. It was quite the vehicle to drive around in. It was tank green, and someone had clipped the offside wing at some point. My dad, being a metal worker, worked in the foundry. Rather than pay out for a wing, and for a vehicle that old, almost impossible to get one, he made one out of a sheet of metal and riveted it on. So not only was it tank green, but it had a riveted wing, so it was very tank-like, which to a 4-year-old boy was amazing. We'd get down to Swanage and it was just amazing, just mind-blowing. You know, I've rarely left Dartford. We didn't have big holidays abroad or anything fancy. It was just schlepping down to Swanage. But going up to Corfe Castle, safe as houses, just running round the countryside. Going down the beach, safe as houses. Mum and Dad would just let us go. We'd only come back when we were hungry. Getting to the hotel, everyone knew everyone. It's how it seemed to me as a child, but of course they didn't. But they related to them because they were the same people. They were all our people. And I'd watch them as a little boy. I'd just watch these adults drinking beers and drinking wines, and they'd chat with these people they met in the hotel bar that night, and they'd be laughing and performing and stories and all sorts. It was quite the place to go. In the street I grew up in, every single door on that road, there was about 25 houses each side. Every single door would be open in the summer. And as a young boy, 6 or 7 years old, if I weren't playing tennis or football in the street with all the other kids, there was a good 15, 20 other kids lived on that road. You had the gardeners down at the bottom. Pauline and Joe were the parents. You had Amanda, Graham, Scott, Emma. Amanda, Graham, Scott, Emma. Oh, there was another one. Amanda, Graham, Scott, Aaron, Emma. That's it, 5. You had Pete and Veronica. He was a London cabbie. And they had Kevin, Tracy, Karen and little Pete. You had the Jarvises. They had 2 daughters. You had David, Mark and Emma Horton. You had a couple over the road, Pauline and Alan Johnson, with Wayne and Anthony. There's more than that. That's just the ones I can remember off the top of my head. And we'd all play in the streets, and you could go into anyone's house. Everyone knew everyone. I'd just go in as a little kid. They'd be like, "Hello Chris, what are you up to?" And I'd just sort of sit there, seeing them cleaning up or doing whatever they were doing. If someone got locked out, because I was a little bit nimble and very small, there'd be a knock on my door. "Hello Janet, can I throw Chris through the upstairs window?" My mum would be like, "Yeah, all right." I used to love it. Ladder up to the bathroom window, climbing up there, climb through the upstairs window, bounce off their bed, go downstairs and let them in. Everyone knew everyone else's name, and everyone trusted everyone. 1977 Silver Jubilee. My dad, he'd left the foundry by this point. He was doing painting and decorating, and he got a job redoing all the interiors for a flag making company, and they gave him a Union Jack. It was about 60 foot long, and we used it as a tablecloth. And at the 1977 Silver Jubilee, that flag went as a tablecloth. All the kids sat around it, everyone chipped in, everyone put a few quid in, all food was bought, and all the kids sat around with their hats on. Everyone had painted their drain pipes and their fences silver for the Jubilee. There was games and competitions, you know, running up the street with a balloon between your knees, having to pass it on to someone else. My mum set up a street club. Every week she'd go around every house, and I think she collected something like 60p off of each of them every week. And then once there was enough money in the coffers, they'd have a street club committee meeting. I think her, Veronica, Barbara, Pauline and Alice. were on the committee, and they'd decide what they were going to do with the money once they'd had enough. It'll be the usual sorts of things. We'd have a disco down the RAF hall, or we'd jump in a coach and go to Margate. Something like that. And if we did jump in a coach and go to Margate and there was 3 seats left over on the coach, my mum went to the local orphanage and she'd tell them we got a few seats on the coach if some of the boys or girls want to come with us, and they'd just offload a few kids on us and they'd come down to Margate with us. And it was just wonderful. And I knew it. I knew it. Even as an 8 or 9 or 4, 5, 6, I knew this was just something special. I was part of Cubs. I went to Cubs. Started a year early. No one minded. You know, keep it down. But I loved it so much. Stayed there for a few years. Oh, loads of young boys went to Cubs from around the community. Mum would come and pick me up. She'd be chatting to all the other mothers. Very few of the mothers worked. No, they looked after children. They raised children and looked after homes. Fathers were out working. And it worked and people were happy. It was a struggle. I mean, when my mum and dad got married, first few days, I think, or weeks, sorry, and this is what my mum has told me, obviously I wasn't born, but for the first few weeks my mum and dad sat there entering competitions, like 100, 150 a day, see if they could get any free stuff. They used to grow button mushrooms in shoe boxes under the stairs. Not magic ones, just mushrooms to eat. Used to grow runner beans and mint out in the back garden, tomatoes, etc. Rhubarb. Amount of rhubarb crumble and custard I ate as a kid. Still makes my mouth water. It was just, you know, for communities that had very little, it was remarkably happy, it was remarkably engaged, because we had the things that mattered. We had safety, we had a sense of communal security, we had community, we had family, we had friendships, and we had things to do. We socialised. And this is the sort of thing that's at stake, because as I got older, I started watching this change. And when I talk about these things in my streams or whatever, or hint about these little odd things that we've done, I know the people around my age get a bit bleary-eyed. And I get sent emails all the time, people saying, I listen to your streams, I remember all that. You know, even as I got a bit older, 11 or 12, off to secondary school, it wasn't a problem. When I come home from school, we used to go around playing on the estates. I lived on the oldest estate in Dartford, ironically called Newtown. But it was no problem going over Temple Hill Estate. It was no problem going up to Fleet Estate. Fleet Estate thought they had a bit more money than the rest of us. Temple Hill was the proper dogs. But you could go over any of those estates. They were safe. You might have the odd little tear up with, you know, another kid, but that's because kids have little tear ups. But there was a cohesive group unity. There was something that identified us all as part of the same tribe. And the effect that that had on that entire area was valuable, was operative, was necessary, and made life wonderful. I saw it starting to change. I couldn't believe it. As I got to 15, 16, things started changing. And it's not that I'm opposed to change, excuse me, on the contrary. Change is inevitable. Change is actually essential. I don't think we should live in museums. Nothing will crush a spirit like that. But certain things need preserving because they don't actually require change. They might differ in appearance. They might alter aesthetically or superficially. But at heart, things like family, things like security, safety, community, they're essential to us. And although there's corporations desperate to remove those things from us, why? So they can sell them back to us in diluted, simulated forms. But when I think about the way England's going, when I think about the direction it's moving and what's happening to it, I think back to how it used to be. I think back to how lucky I was to inhabit a world that was so beautiful and so perfect for a young child to grow into. A place that responded to his curiosity, that responded to his natural risk-taking, that allowed him to find his identity within groups of people who accepted him as one of them. So when I think about this sort of stuff, when I think about what's happened to that incredible culture, of great British culture, these are the things that make me realise these changes have to be made. We need to halt this ridiculous liberal multicultural movement that's just ploughing forward with no regard for the people who actually have to inhabit its spaces. And that's not just the native ethnic British. That's the immigrants too. This project fails for everyone, and everyone involved becomes starved of the very basic things that make humans happy, that give humans the option of fulfilling their potential. Safety, security, family, community, nation. Because when I think about people having children, people raising families in England, and when I see that they're not, when I see the birth rate plummeting, I'm not surprised. Frightening places to breed, frightening places to put children. How the hell are you meant to protect children in such an environment, in such a hostile environment, where you don't have community, where you don't have socialising, where you kind of know in advance the only way you can keep them safe is to keep them in the house? And that does damage to children, and that does damage to families. We had an amazing country. England was just wonderful. And we can have it again. We can have it again.